The boardroom in London was silent except for the clicking of my presentation remote and the soft hum of the air conditioning. 22 executives from 3 continents watched as I outlined our quarterly performance metrics. Europe up 18%, Asia showing a remarkable 23% growth, all departments on track for annual targets. My phone, tucked in my blazer pocket, buzzed against my ribs, unusual, since everyone in my professional circle knew I kept it on silent during presentations. The notification lit up briefly on the mahogany table as I reached for my water. Email from Michael. It's over. My throat tightened, but years of boardroom experience kicked in. As you can see, I continued smoothly, our Asian markets show substantial growth, particularly in the tech sector. The words felt mechanical, detached from my mouth, as my mind raced. Why would Michael send an email with that subject line during my biggest presentation of the year? I clicked through 2 more slides. Cost reduction metrics, strategic initiatives for Q4, but the words on my carefully crafted PowerPoint might as well have been hieroglyphics. "Excuse me for just a moment," I said, maintaining my professional composure. "Let's take a brief 5-minute break." In the empty hallway, my heels clicked against polished marble as I walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames. My fingers trembled as I opened the email, each word like a knife to the gut. "Sarah, by the time you read this, I'll have moved on to my new life. Jessica makes me feel alive in ways you never could. She understands what it means to live, not just exist. I've emptied our accounts. Consider it compensation for the years I wasted pretending we had something real. Don't come home. I've changed the locks. The house is mine now. Always was, really. Don't try to fight this. You were never good at confrontation anyway. You'll lose." My vision blurred at the edges. With mechanical precision, I opened our banking app, already knowing what I'd find. Joint checking, joint savings, investment account. 8 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, all those nights I'd worked late to build our future. Reduced to a string of zeros on a screen. If you think running away and stealing from someone who trusts you is somehow justified, don't bother subscribing to this channel. But if you believe that actions have consequences, that what goes around comes around in ways people never expect, hit that subscribe button now. This story isn't about emotional meltdowns or dramatic confrontations. It's about measured responses that change absolutely everything. Because sometimes, the quietest moves make the loudest impacts. I read the email again, each word cutting deeper. The cruel dismissiveness, the arrogance, the assumption of my weakness. But it was the timestamp that caught my attention, sent at 3:47 a.m. London time, which meant 7:47 p.m. in Seattle, prime dinner hour. "Jessica and I have been together for 6 months, the email continued. She's everything you're not, spontaneous, fun, actually present. She doesn't constantly travel for work, leaving me alone in this empty house. She's moving in today, yes, into our house. I've already filed the paperwork. My lawyer says you have no claim since the deed is in my name alone, thanks to that prenup you insisted on signing. Funny how that backfired on you." 6 months. While I was negotiating contracts in Singapore, closing deals in Dubai, building the career that paid for our lifestyle, he was planning my disposal. The signs had been there. Late nights at his new CrossFit gym, passwords suddenly changed on all our devices, mysterious charges labeled as business expenses for his failing consulting firm. When I'd asked about the $800 charge at Tiffany's last month, he'd turned it around. "Don't you trust me? After all these years? Maybe if you were home more often." My colleagues noticed my pale face when I returned to the boardroom. "Family emergency?" asked James, the CFO, genuine concern in his eyes. "Something like that," I replied, finishing the presentation on autopilot. The numbers, the charts, the strategic recommendations, all delivered flawlessly while my world crumbled. Back in my hotel suite at the Savoy, I stared at my phone. Most people would call immediately, scream, demand answers. Instead, I typed 2 words, "understood." Then I made 1 phone call. "Dad," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "I need you to call Uncle Richard." "Yes, that Uncle Richard. Tell him it's time to use everything he taught me." My father, a retired federal judge, didn't ask questions. He simply said, "I'll have him call you in 10 minutes. Are you safe?" "I'm in London, but Michael's made his move." "Understood," he said, echoing my text to Michael. We're on this. Uncle Richard wasn't really my uncle. He was my godfather and a retired FBI forensic accountant who specialized in financial crimes. He'd always said I was his best student, absorbing everything he taught about financial security, asset protection, and fraud detection. He'd even helped me set up certain safeguards after Michael's consulting business started failing 2 years ago. Just in case, Richard had said then. Better to have it and not need it. Sarah, your father filled me in. Uncle Richard's gravelly voice came through the encrypted app he insisted we use. First, breathe. Second, give me remote access to your security system. Within minutes, we were looking at live feeds from our home security cameras, the system Michael never knew had cloud backup. There she was, Jessica, lounging on my Italian leather sofa, wearing my Chanel robe, scrolling through her phone with my grandmother's engagement ring glinting on her finger. The timestamp showed she'd been there for hours. Now let's check her digital footprint, Richard muttered. Her Instagram was a goldmine. Photos of her wearing my jewelry, posing with my limited edition Hermès bags, even sitting at my vanity using my La Mer skincare. Each post tagged with new beginnings, blessed, living my best life. Richard, I said, zooming in on one photo. That's my mother's necklace, the one from the safe. When did Michael get power of attorney? Richard asked, his voice sharp. He didn't. Then we have a problem, or rather, he does. These property transfer documents were filed yesterday. The signature, it's not yours. My heart stopped. He forged my signature? Poorly. The notary seal is suspicious too. Also, the bank records show systematic withdrawals over the past 3 months, all just under the $10,000 reporting threshold. Classic structuring. This isn't just betrayal, Sarah. This is federal crime. Bank fraud, wire fraud, forgery, identity theft. A text from my father pinged. Richard says this is criminal. He's contacting his former colleagues at the Bureau. I've also called Judge Martinez. She owes me a favor. We're on this. 36 hours later, I landed at SeaTac. Dad and Uncle Richard met me at arrivals, both wearing the grim expressions I remembered from Richard's days testifying in federal court. We're going straight to the bank, Richard announced. The head of their fraud division is expecting us. In a glass-walled office on the 40th floor of the Columbia Center, we met Marcus Chen, Senior VP of Financial Security. Richard laid out the evidence. Forged signatures, structured withdrawals, fraudulent property transfers. Marcus studied the documents, his expression darkening. This is remarkably amateurish. It's like he wanted to get caught. He pulled up our accounts. He drained everything yesterday, transferred it to an offshore account in the Caymans. But here's the thing. The receiving bank flagged it immediately. International transfers over $100,000 from personal accounts trigger automatic reviews. They're holding the funds pending investigation. Can we freeze everything? I asked. Already done. The moment Richard called, we initiated emergency protocols. The property transfer is even more problematic for him. Forged documents void the entire transaction. And this. He pulled up another screen. This is interesting. He tried to refinance the house 3 weeks ago. Listed someone named Jessica Warren as co-applicant. Richard leaned forward. What's interesting about that? Jessica Warren has a record. 2 priors for check fraud, 1 for identity theft. She's been flagged in our system since 2019. My phone buzzed. Michael, why aren't you answering? We need to talk about the divorce terms. I'm willing to be reasonable if you are. I showed the message to Richard. He smiled coldly. Let him think he's in control a little longer. The FBI wants to build a complete case. That evening, Richard's former FBI partner, Special Agent Maria Martinez, joined us at my father's house in Bellevue. She slid a thick file across the kitchen table. Jessica Warren, also known as Jessica Thompson, Jessica Williams, and Jennifer Walsh. She's got priors in 3 states: check fraud, identity theft, elder abuse. She targets married men in upper management positions, convinces them to drain marital assets, then disappears once the money's secured. I flipped through the file. 3 previous victims, all executives, all left financially and emotionally destroyed. Michael wasn't just cheating, Martinez continued. He was being played. But that doesn't excuse his actions. He chose to commit multiple felonies. What's interesting is they got greedy this time. Usually, Warren disappears with liquid assets. The property fraud, the attempt to refinance, that's new. Makes me think there's someone else involved. What do you mean? I asked. The refinancing application lists a guarantor, Marcus DeLuca. He runs a real estate investment firm that's been on our radar. We suspect money laundering, but haven't had enough evidence. Until now. Richard nodded. So Michael thought he was the mastermind, but he was just another Mark who happened to be criminally inclined himself. Exactly. And by involving banks across state lines, forging federal documents, and attempting wire fraud, they've given us everything we need for a RICO case. RICO? I asked. Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. This isn't just fraud anymore, it's organized crime. If you're looking for stories where people throw wine in faces and scream in restaurants, keep scrolling. But if you want to see how silence can be the most powerful weapon, how one strategic phone call can dismantle an entire criminal enterprise, then subscribe now. Real power isn't in the dramatic confrontation, it's in the quiet moves that bring down empires. Some people think revenge is satisfaction. They're wrong. Justice is the real satisfaction. And it's best served with precision. The next morning, I sat in an FBI surveillance van parked down the street from my house, the house Michael claimed was now his. 3 agents in dark suits approached the front door. My phone rang. Michael's panicked voice. "Sarah, there are FBI agents at the door. What the hell did you do? Who are these people?" I let silence hang for a moment before whispering, "Your new reality." "What are you talking about? Sarah, call them off. This is insane. We can work this out." "You should have thought about that before committing wire fraud, Michael." Through the surveillance camera, I watched Jessica try to slip out the back door, only to be met by 2 more agents. Her designer heels, my designer heels, clicked frantically on the patio as they placed her in handcuffs. Inside, Michael was falling apart. The agents had him sitting at our dining table, the one we'd bought at an antique store on our honeymoon. "She told me Sarah would never fight back." Michael's voice came through the wire. "She said executives' wives never want the scandal. This was supposed to be simple." Agent Martinez's voice was crisp and professional. "Mr. Peterson, you have the right to remain silent." I ended the call and sent one final text. "I don't fight, Michael, I win." The federal courthouse was packed for the sentencing. Michael, once proud in his tailored suits, now sat diminished in prism gray. Jessica Warren, the supposed mastermind, looked small without her borrowed glamour. Marcus DeLuca, the real estate connection, sat separately with his own legal team. Judge Harrison, known for her tough stance on financial crimes, didn't mince words. "Mr. Peterson, you didn't just betray a marriage. You committed wire fraud, bank fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Your attempts to hide assets show consciousness of guilt. The fact that you were also being deceived by Mr. Warren doesn't mitigate your own criminal actions." Michael received 8 years federal time. Jessica, with her prior record, got 12. DeLuca, who tried to flip on everyone, still got 15 for the money laundering charges. The house was returned to me, along with all assets, plus substantial penalties. The IRS was particularly interested in Michael's unreported income from his previous consulting work. As they led him away, Michael turned to me. "How?" he mouthed, his arrogance finally replaced with genuine confusion. I didn't need to answer. The evidence spoke for itself. As Richard had said, never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. 6 months later, I sat across from Michael in the federal prison visiting room, separated by thick security glass. His orange jumpsuit hung loose on his frame. "Why didn't you scream at me?" he asked, his voice broken. "Why didn't you fight, yell, threaten like normal people do?" "Because I knew something you didn't." "What's that?" "That patience outlasts passion. Anger burns out. Strategy endures." I studied his face, looking for the man I'd once loved. "You thought my silence was weakness. It was preparation." He slumped in his chair. "I destroyed everything for nothing. She didn't even love me. She was just using me." "No, Michael, you revealed everything that mattered. You showed me who you really were, and you gave me the freedom to become who I was meant to be." As I stood to leave, he pressed his hand against the glass. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I really am. I know. But sorry doesn't rebuild trust. It just acknowledges the ruins." My new penthouse overlooked Elliott Bay. its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Olympic mountains in the distance. The security system was state-of-the-art, Uncle Richard's design, with triple authentication and biometric locks. I named my consulting firm Phoenix Advisory, specializing in protecting high-net-worth individuals from financial fraud. My first client was the FBI, contracting me to train agents on identifying sophisticated fraud schemes targeting executives. Speaking invitations poured in. When silence speaks louder than words became my signature talk at security conferences. Women and men approached me after every event, sharing their stories, seeking guidance. I adopted a retired canine named Atlas from the police department, a German shepherd who'd been injured in the line of duty. Like me, he was learning to trust again. I don't just survive, I told an interviewer from Forbes. I evolve. Every betrayal is an opportunity to shed an old skin and grow stronger. The article went viral. My TED Talk hit 10 million views in its first week. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Miss Peterson, you don't know me, but your story saved my company. I'm CEO of a biotech startup in Boston. 6 months ago, I noticed patterns similar to what you described in your talk. My CFO exhibiting the same behaviors as your ex-husband. Because of your warning signs checklist, I investigated quietly. We discovered he'd been siphoning funds with his girlfriend, planning to bankrupt the company and buy our patents at auction. The FBI says it's connected to the same network that targeted you. Your case gave them the blueprint to recognize the pattern. Thank you for being brave enough to share your story. You didn't just save my company, you saved the futures of our 200 employees and the patients who need our medications. With deepest gratitude, Dr. Emily Chen. I started a newsletter, Financial Red Flags in Relationships. It grew to 100,000 subscribers in 3 months. Every week, women and men wrote about recognizing warning signs, protecting assets, rebuilding lives. The ripple effect continued. More victims came forward. The FBI expanded their investigation, uncovering a nationwide network targeting successful professionals through romantic manipulation. I watched the sunset from my home office, gold light painting the water. On my wall hung a framed copy of Michael's email, "It's over." A reminder of the day my real life began. Next to it, Dr. Chen's letter, representing all the lives changed by one decision to fight back strategically. My phone buzzed. A new client referral from the FBI. Another executive, another suspicious pattern, another chance to help someone avoid my fate. Atlas stirred at my feet, then settled back into sleep. We'd both found peace in our new normal, built on truth, protected by wisdom, strengthened by experience. He took what he thought mattered, I told Atlas, scratching behind his ears. But left behind what actually did. My dignity, my intelligence, my ability to rise. The phone buzzed again, this time a text from Dad. "Proud of you, sweetheart, your mom would be too. Remember what she always said?" I smiled, recalling Mom's favorite lesson. "Sarah, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead, and the smartest warriors win before the battle begins." Looking out at the bay, I realized I hadn't won because I was angry or vengeful. I'd won because I was prepared, patient, and precise. Michael had mistaken my quiet nature for weakness, my strategic thinking for passivity. His last letter from prison still sat unopened in my desk drawer. I didn't need to read it. The past was the past. My future was helping others recognize the signs, protect themselves, and understand that sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal isn't a scream. It's a whisper that brings down an empire. If you prefer stories where people throw furniture and live stream their breakdowns, this isn't your channel. But if you understand that true power comes from control, that one strategic phone call can do more damage than 1,000 emotional outbursts, then subscribe now. We tell stories for those who know. The quietest response often creates the loudest impact. The person who stays calm while others panic is usually the one writing the ending. Next time, we'll share how a 73-year-old grandmother took down an entire investment fraud scheme with nothing but patience and a notebook. But that story? That's only for our subscribers who understand why whispers echo longer than screams.